towards the future of flag football now. So obviously it's in the Olympics. I mean, can you remember like when you first heard like the official announcement? Obviously it was rumored
Mhm.
for a long time that it was almost definitely in, but we were just waiting for that official one. Do you remember like what your first thoughts were when they said it's now an Olympic sport?
Um, my first thoughts were, hey, get yourself in shape because quarterbacks can play until they're 40, and you know what? Like maybe there's only a 5% chance that you could, you know, become a Great Britain quarterback again or something like that. But I'd rather try and put myself in the position to do it than just kind of sit and be out of shape and whatever. So that was kind of like my first thought actually. Um, and it was like it's not even that long of a commitment. It's like 3 years, 5 years, whatever. Like you can have some self control for that long. And it was also like I want to be there. I want to be there, and I was like, so what are the opportunities for me to be there? It's like I think anyone would want to play, but it's also like I've had an amazing experience and time coaching Denmark and being part of that, and so it's like it was also kind of like at that time also it was like oh the Denmark coach was or like the head coach was leaving, like are they going to want to keep me around or not? And so it's like I gotta do the stuff to prepare so that whoever they decide to bring in as a new person like wants me around. Um, because to me, I look at those as like the my main potential avenues for being involved in the Olympics, and that's even before you to okay, you're on the team or you're on the staff. Well, you got to qualify too. Like there's no guarantee. You can't just be on the team and then go. It's still not official or people don't know 100% how many teams are going to be invited and all that sort of stuff. So, or what the qualification process looks like. Um, so all you can do is be as ready as possible. And so that's kind of those are the things that went through my head, just like from a personal standpoint. Um, and then from a group standpoint, I invited my U.S. team over to my house, and we watched a Monday night football game and made a bunch of food and celebrated the fact that flag football is in the Olympics. So
I mean, you mentioned your American team, TC United, quite a few times in this one. I mean, so we were over in Florida. We got to see you play from that one.
yeah, you saw us on a bad day.
I mean, the scale of the tournament as well is a massive thing. So obviously you've been to Big Bowl. You know how. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest tournaments,
Yeah,
not just pitch size, like size wise, but also like the amount of like that people know about it as well. I
yeah,
mean, we already said like when registration opens, it's normally closed within 5 minutes. You have
yeah.
to sit there and be prepared. I mean, talking to anybody who hasn't been to the Florida Championships yet, what's your kind of like comparison and how does it even slightly compare to European football?
I think what I really like about it is I've always been someone who I would rather compete be like I want to be in the very best circle possible. I don't like being the smartest person in the room or like the best athlete in the room or whatever it could be. I don't like being that person. I like to be in a place where what's the highest level I can possibly be at. And going to this tournament, like that's what it is. Um, and you have the opportunity to compete at scale. Like they have all these different divisions. They have, I think, for everything. They have like pro, elite, comp, rec, novice, amateur, and it's like we go there and we compete in the pro division. And I think at Tampa this past year, I think like the pro division, we went. I think we won 8 games, lost 7. We won a playoff game in every format except the one that you watched us in. You know, so and it can be hard. And I was talking to kind of our number one receiver who was invited to U.S. national team trials this year about it. He's like, sometimes I come down here and I forget that when we step out here, we're literally playing against the 15 best. When you're playing in that pro division, you're playing those fives pros division. You're playing with the 15 to 30 best teams in the country, and you could expand that and say probably the 15 to 30 best teams in the world, or maybe 15 to 30 of the very, very best, because there are international teams that could come over and do well. Like, I think pretty much when you go to Finland, you see all those like playoff teams, those teams that like made the final 16 or the final 8. All those teams to me would be like low level, for the most part, maybe a little bit better, but like low level pro teams in the U.S. So they could compete. But like you see why Húsveld, Pablo, those guys are all parts of top level pro teams. And to kind of give you a sense, like, so I've played against Húsveld, Pablo, like that group of guys, Mark. I've played against them about like 5 times now. I've had 3 games where we've had a final play to win from, one time was a 2-point conversion to win, and then 2 others were plays from essentially the 5-yard line. And then the other 2 games, they destroyed me. And like, that's kind of where it is. It's like, I would consider us at our best. We've made finals. We made the national championship in 2022. We made the semifinals at Florida, in Tampa the year before, and actually beat we probably like got upset. We got some upsets, and like the team we lost to, they were good, but like they weren't as good as the teams we beat. But like you're there, and it's just like a gauntlet. Like, there is no cupcake on your schedule ever. It's just like everyone is really, really, really good, and it just really sharpens you. And I think what it does more than anything is what the U.S. does more than they do in Europe is they play so much more man and like single high stuff that relies on better athletes, and so it gets you to be more precise with playing against that, because every zone has like a defined hole. But the only quote-unquote perfect defense is man-on-man defense where the guy can't get away. That's the only perfect defense. And so you see more of that in the U.S. and just makes it so you like it. It just kind of raises your game. I like, personally, the professionalism over in Europe much more. I like the conduct much more. I do think there's still too much, even at that top level in the U.S., of guys show up, put their cleats on, and step on the field, having been drinking or smoking or whatever. And I think you see some of that behavior, and you see some of these athletes, and it's not hard to connect dots why maybe some of them aren't playing in the NFL right now, because of some of that just becomes like, how do you conduct yourself business-wise? So I much prefer how the European teams scout and work and are analytical and prepare. I much prefer that. But there's no substitute for the competition and the pace and the scale that you see in Tampa.
My big pop buzz. So the dummies trying to run me, don't try to do nothing funny.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that like when we first turned up, I looked at it and was like, okay, there's a couple of pictures here. This should be quite good. And then I walked through the concrete building in the middle, and oh look, there's more pictures on this side, and I think it was like 37 pictures or something across.
Something like that, yeah.
And that's not just like 5-on-5. That's like the full 100-yard pictures as well. So I know, like having a stage with the DJ on there all day. It was. For an atmospheric thing, it was absolutely amazing to watch. And then just to look around, and like you said, like just looking at the athletes that they've got, and like you said, because it's people just kind of turn up and play, and just go, this is how good you are. This is, you think how good they could be. And like you said before, there's a lot of people who go, I can do this, but I've never been coached. You coach them and see how much better they could actually be. So that's a great one to watch.
Yeah, it is, for sure. For sure. And you can learn a lot from styles and the things that they do, and just like being able to play at that pace. The first time I ever played in the U.S., I think I threw 2 pick sixes and a half and got benched. And it was just all sorts of terrible. And I realized like how much more precise. Like I was just okay, you can throw it kind of anywhere in this general vicinity, but now it's like you have to put the ball right here, and if it's here, it's a pick. Like it's just not a big difference. And so, I think you see that even when you see Euros or Worlds or any of that stuff. I think you know. Something that some of the European teams do struggle with is they've gotten really good at ripping apart some zones or stuff. But I think one of the reasons you saw, I think generally lower scoring games, like let's throw USA out for a second, but like outside of that, generally lower scoring games at the World on the men's side is you had a lot more men's team playing kind of man pickup or single high or stuff that requires better athletes. And I think some of the offenses aren't used to having to make such precise throws all the time.
Yeah, I think the change and adaptability are like, I think a lot more people are watching other teams and kind of going, this is what they're doing, and kind of taking their play style. And I think that's great because you see, like you get the World Championship, so you get a lot more teams there, and because people put videos on and they stream games, that's what kind of a lot of people kind of watch it and go, you know what, that could work well for us. So I think that's great. The growth of the sport in general,
for sure,
is a great one. We have one last question, and this is obviously you've done Great Britain's as a player, you've done GB as a coach, you've done Denmark, you've got Portugal. I mean, what's next for Vince Machi?
I mean, like I said, I would love to be involved in the Olympics, and I also I want to play as long as I can. So I keep TC United and playing in the U.S. and playing against that. My original goal when I built TC United was I want to have a legit pro team, and a team that people look at and they respect. And I'm not gonna deluge myself and say I'm gonna build a team and we're gonna win every championship ever. But then you do that and you have success, and then we've made a final and we've made semifinal, and we're like, we've done something. We've also had some tournaments that haven't, we had this tournament in Nashville this summer and it didn't go so well. It's just not a good tournament for us. But that's what it is at that level. It's just if you're not on your game, you're going to lose. It's just that simple. And so I think for me, I want to compete there at the highest level possible and see if I can't, win some things there. On the European side, I'm spending more time there, so I'd love to play in more tournaments in Europe and keep that going. And then, on the coaching side, I'd love to help continue making Denmark as it's kind of been interesting. It's been I've been part of Denmark during a rebuilding phase. And during our quote unquote rebuilding phase, we made the quarterfinals of the World Championships. So it's I'm kind of excited to see that process build through. Our quarterback there, love him to death, Alex, he never played a flag football game before the World Championships. He talked about my debut being at Big Bowl. His debut was at the World Championships, his first ever flag football game. And so I think there's, seeing the growth and seeing him and seeing that team grow and see, what other guys we can get and be part of this process of kind of restoring that glory, I think is really interesting to me. And I love that. So I think for me, yeah, I mean, if there were a country that called me up and they said, hey, Vince, we're going to the Olympics and we want you to play for us, and yes, absolutely, I would do that. But if that were not a possibility, then, I want to be there in a coaching role. And, I've loved being in the role that I'm currently in.
So there we go. That's I'm not going to say it's the full story of Vince's football career. This is just this is the middle ground. We'll see what the next few stages go. But Vince, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I know it's taken us a few attempts to get together on this one, but we're finally here. Yeah, thank you so much, Marcus. It's awesome to be here and talk with you and such. So hopefully we'll see you on the Olympic stage as well soon. Hopefully.
Thank you.